There you go. Now you can share it. While you're doing that, I'll do the intros. Hi, Facebook people. Whether you're watching it live down below, I don't know. I'm too much in the moment with my guests. I never look at the messages you're sending, but I'm thankful if you are watching. If you're watching after the fact at home, thank you. You can kick back. Doesn't matter if you have clothes on. Watch the blinking lights. These interviews were created so that you at home can sit back and get to know comedians one after another, who they are off stage. What are their likes? What is their passion? Why did they get into comedy? Who were they growing up? Get a glimpse of who they were as a little kid, growing up. Why are they in comedy? You know, just the normal things that I ask every time. No real surprises, but everybody has a story to tell. And that's where you get to know uniquely who is Janice L. Fox today, for instance. She's our esteemed guest right over there looking beautiful. I've known her for a while. I met her in real life at Wise Guys one night, right? Yeah. So I'm going to say the intro that she gave me to say. Bear with me. It's a few paragraphs long, but you'll get a glimpse of who she is from her intro. She says, "My name is Janice L. Fox, and I've been a comedian since 2019. My style is more of a one-liner stand-up comedian. My material is observational and a mix of ratings between PG and RRR. I have performed in comedy clubs in the Pacific Northwest, which include Tacoma Comedy Club, Spokane Comedy Club, Nate Jackson Super Funny Comedy Club. I mixed up that word. Nate Jackson Super Funny Comedy Club and Watson's Dinner Club in Idaho and dive bars. Recently, I was in the Mutiny Radio Comedy Festival down in San Francisco and performed in OMG and the Alameda Comedy Club. I performed in the Kenan Thompson Showcase at Nate Jackson Super Funny Comedy Club, the largest all-Black-owned comedy club in the United States. I have performed in shows, excuse me, the thing moved on me. I have performed in shows, The Rude Girls and Momedy and various other Pacific Northwest, others in the Northwest. I will be performing at the Otter. I can't read with the hill of beans. I will be performing at the Otter in Tacoma, Washington, December 19th, and I have been booked for a commercial in January 2023 and can't really give the details about it as of yet. I'm a retired registered nurse and love using comedy as the next best thing because we all know laughter is the best medicine. I talk about my children getting older and life in general. I've overcome invasive breast cancer, knock on wood. My husband came down with Parkinson's 3 years ago, and he is my video guy. So that might be why some of my videos are a little shaky, LOL. My son and daughter have been in the Army and are both disabled veterans, and they cheer me on while I make funny jokes about them. I will be doing comedy until I stop, and I mean when my heart stops. And she also wants you to know she'll be performing at the Odd Otter December 19th. So I left out the Odd Otter in Tacoma, Washington, which is, one second again, it moved on me, which is produced by our friend Sherry Hagan Hardman with Bubble Wrap Production. If I'm not performing on stage, you can usually find me at various, it moved on me again, open mics in the Seattle, Tacoma area, like the Flight Path, the Night Owl Social Club, Tacoma Comedy Club, and Nate Jackson Super Funny Comedy Club, and various others in our area. It's like I say in comedy, comedy is my oxygen. I need it to breathe. And at my age, that's a very important factor in my life. And one other thing is that I truly think that just because a woman is past the age of 50 doesn't mean her sexuality is thrown out the door. We're still very sensual and sexy individuals as we age. So let's welcome her right now to the stage, right here on Comic Spot, my esteemed guest for this hour, Janice L. Fox. Yay, hi.
Hello.
Thank you so much for taking time to come on to Comic Spot, Janice. I've adored you from afar. Got to meet you one night at Wise Guys. I love your comedy. I'm very much a one-liner, not necessarily one-liner, but set-up punch kind of gal myself. So I really loved your comedy. You're very funny.
Oh,
Very
thank
funny
you.
indeed. Yes. So talk to me about where you live and what you've been doing off stage lately, away from comedy.
Well, I live out in a small town called Lake Bay, Washington, and it's out on the Key Peninsula. It's across the water from Tacoma. And it's a real rural area. And there's people that have lived here. If you look up Home, Washington, it was like a nudist camp 100 years ago. But they don't do that anymore, of course. But it's a real interesting place to live. You have the very, very rich, and then we have a lot of woods and homeless that camp there sometimes. So it's pretty interesting, to say the least. And my biggest project off comedy is I have a Facebook group called Key Peninsula Freely Given. There's about 2,000 of us now. And that's where keeping things out of the landfill and helping community by, oh, I'm getting a new refrigerator. It still works. Let's put it in the garage. Somebody over here needs a refrigerator. So they give it to them. And it's really very, very successful.
Oh, that's amazing. Congratulations on that. What a great service.
Well, we have a lot of fun with it.
Oh, that's fabulous. So where is it that you grew up originally?
Issaquah, Washington.
I know Issaquah. I used to live on Lake McDonald.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that my family had a little farm about a mile from Front Street. Since 1901 is when they bought that property there. So it was my great grandfathers, my great grandmothers, my grandfathers, and then they sold it. That's what happens. But we still had, oh my gosh, we were still using an outhouse there in the 1960s. You know, it was. So,
were they farmers or what were they?
More dairy. That's what they did during the war. You know, my grandfather, he built roads, and the railways, those type of things, and then they had a dairy farm. In fact, the dairy farm, even during Prohibition, they kept the liquor flowing, let's just say.
For those of you that don't know Issaquah, Washington, it's a beautiful spot just east of Renton, southeast of Bellevue, Seattle. It's a beautiful little pocket with mountains around, a hilly little city, but also a core downtown area, which is what she's speaking of, that her great-great-grandfather had a dairy business right in the downtown sector, but they sold it. So yeah, that would have been beautiful to hold on to that, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And now you live out in the peninsula west of Tacoma, which is also a gorgeous area.
Yeah, it's very beautiful out here. We're less than a mile from the salt water. And then there's little lakes around that are like a mile where you can fish for bass. And so we've got a lot of people coming in and buying up this property because Gig Harbor has turned into another Bellevue. It's just boomed and exploded. So now those people want to move out here. So
wow.
Yeah, it's just, progress. What do? So You find a little piece of heaven, and then everybody else finds it, and you have to find another piece of heaven. You know?
Yes. So what's the actual city that you live in?
Lake Bay, Washington.
How do you spell that?
Lakebay.
Lake Bay?
Just Lake Bay. And the
I'll
reason
have to look at it.
what happened was home, the United States Postal Service refused to deliver mail to home because they were got in a fight with the government, these people. So they opened up Lake Bay Post Office. So it's really all home, but because of that war back in 100 years ago, I live in Lake Bay, but my neighbors live in home. You know, it's that type of a situation.
Oh my gosh. And you spell home Home?
Yeah, no, I say I'm.
That's crazy history. Oh my gosh.
Oh,
So let's talk about you growing up. Who were you as a little kid in your home at 5 and 6 years of age?
Well, I didn't speak until I was 4 years old. And we all know, you know, it's like I say, the doctor told my mother I was just stubborn, you know, so just don't feed her until she talks. Now they say spectrum, you know, but it's how times change. And I have to bring my best girlfriend. We've been best girlfriend 63 years. And she was my defender. You know, she protected me from the bullies, and we're still best friends to this day. And she lived right across this little creek in Issaquah. And my dad built a little bridge so we could go across. He was afraid I was going to get wet or whatever. And we've been those type of friends that we don't see each other for 10 years. And it's like we've never left, you know, this very soulmate type of friendship there. But
Yes.
That's what I grew up in Issaquah until I was around 5. And then my mother was single at the time. My dad was a horrific alcoholic, very smart and artistic, but not good. So my mother back then, they didn't have welfare, they didn't have food stamps, she had to work, you know, and she had 5 kids. I was the middle oldest girl, 2 older brothers, 2 younger sisters, and I was right in the middle. So we know I was the peacekeeper. And what does a peacekeeper do? We funny, you know, we bring laughter into every situation, you know. And so that quick wit runs in the family. I mean, you wouldn't even want to sit. There's so many nurses in my family to sit down and have Thanksgiving, and with their quick wit, it is crazy to listen to us.
So you, after growing up, what happened with you in high school? How did you develop? Who were you in high school?
Okay, I wasn't a hippie, and I wasn't really popular. I think I still played that middle child, you know, when you think back on it. And on the weekends, I was kind of like a hippie, but at school, I dressed the part. You know, I had one high school sweetheart all the way through high school. I was really shy, very shy, but I was kind of an instigator. With my girlfriend and I have just like, you know, this would be funny if, and she would just do it. The rap so many times, never ratted me out because who thought of this, you know? So, you know, I got married 2 weeks after I turned 18.
Wow.
Yeah, and that was my brother's best friend. Went to Vietnam and came back, and I grew up. The story, you hear it a million times back then, but you know, he was 4 years older than I was, and there came oops. And then not again, you know. That's part of my jokes, you know, with that. But we were married 23 years. I was a stay-at-home mom, didn't drink, didn't smoke. I tell my kids, all your disabilities are natural. I didn't do anything to cause them.
So you have a lot of military in your family. Were your grandfather, father, great grandfather military?
My father was merchant Marines, and in fact, he wrote a book called Poems That Ring a Bell, and he has a part in there where he actually saved 27 South Koreans because when the North was taking over Incheon, the merchant Marines and these people were climbing in anything that floated, and he went out and he saved 27 women and children
Oh,
back then.
cool.
And people don't understand. We lost a lot of merchant Marines during the war, and because they were the supply chains, and they got bombed just like everybody else, and ships and stuff like that. And my one brother went in the Coast Guard, one brother went in the Army. My grandfather, he had lost a finger in a log mill. Literally, he lost a finger. So, and his job was where he was running a dairy farm and building roads. So they had a different classification for that type of man, So he didn't go into the service, but all my uncles did. Navy, Air Force, and Army.
And what about your great grandfather?
He was Canadian. I almost mixed up. My great grandfather was Canadian. He came down and married my grandmother. She's the one that owned the farm. Her father came directly from Scotland in the 1850s. So wow. Early. But then come to find out, my mother lied about this. They were first cousins.
Oh my gosh. That's incredible. I love this.
She lost her husband. She had 2 children back then. They did that. It was either a brother or a cousin stepped in to take care of the widow.
Yes.
So that was kind of, but he was Canadian, and they ended up, she was married like 3 times. She was a woman before her time. She ran a saloon, a little bar in Issaquah until Prohibition, And she used to take my grandfather, and he'd be in a basket, and she'd play the piano, in the saloon, and he would just sleep. The story, he just slept through the whole noise, everything.
Wow.
I come from very independent women in my family.
Yeah. So. And talk to me about your daughter and your son being in the military.
My daughter and my son was a biological warfare specialist. 911 happened, and my daughter was a mechanic, a truck. She drove truck and did that type of thing. Now, my son got injured. He fell and broke his hip, and what happened was a cyst built between the head and the leg bone, and it just ate his joint up. By the time they finally got him in, which it would have been a simple surgery had they done it, but we know the problems there, but the damage is done. He needs a hip replacement, and he's been putting that off because he's only 40 years old, So, and my daughter, she was in Korea, and then she came back and got out. But what happened was she went in for surgery for a toe. I mean, this is such a sad story. She broke her toe in boot camp. And when she got out of the service, it was still causing problems. She went in, they took the toe off. Then the rest of her foot started collapsing and went into half her foot. Well, MRSA set in, and the surgeon just thought she was complaining, didn't check or whatnot. She lost her leg up down below her knee, which if she'd been civilian, there would have probably been a suit for millions. But being it was veterans, so she's really done a lot with it. Like she has lemon aid, she's an influencer, she's really into the amputee community, really hot and heavy with that.
Oh, fabulous.
Yeah. So it was something that shouldn't have happened, but it did. But she's not a whiner. I don't know what else to say.
I love that. She's an overcomer.
Yeah, she is. I remember her calling me from boot camp and saying, "Mom, they said I'm chewing meat." And I said, "Well, show them your tough chewed meat." Oh, yeah. So
I was in the Army and I called my mother from boot camp crying one day.
yeah,
I remember.
yeah, you know, she got through it. But with the toe, it was either go and let the toe heal for 6 weeks when it was the last week, or redo the whole thing. So she ran, you know, and that's what you do. You know?
Yes.
She wasn't going to do that boot camp again, but I mean, it led to her losing her leg.
Oh my gosh. Well, be sure and let everybody in your family who's still alive, please thank them for their service from me. I would appreciate it. I love thanking people for their service. It's just one of the many things you can really do. There's so many other ways to thank them than just verbally saying thank you for your service, but it means so much to me to say it. So having said that, tell me about your accomplishments you got into you were in nursing and now you're healing people with laughter. So tell me about nursing and into comedy.
Well, my husband and I, we ran a heating, ventilation, air conditioning business, and he started having heart attacks at 50. Well, he was the brains of the operation. I went back to college in my 50s and graduated in my late 50s. And I had a ball with those kids. Let me tell you, I even took a PE class to prove that I should be doing it. Oh gosh, I'd go to English and my cheeks were as red as your scarf, you know, just like that. But I had to prove I could do it, you know. And then came out and did a residency at a hospital, med surg, ortho. Then, I wanted to get into home health care. My niece was in the home health care, and I had to have a year of geriatrics. So I bit the bullet when registered nurses don't work at nursing homes, you know, it's only LPNs. But if this is going to get me my dream job, and I did it for a year, absolutely loved it. Did the psych dementia unit and came out and walked into my dream job. And I loved it. It was like my car was like a hospital, because I was all the way from Long Branch. We're talking 22 miles, this peninsula is, all the way into North Tacoma, South Kitsap, the Gig Harbor area. And I just absolutely loved it. It just, you never knew what you were going to find, you know, when you walked through the door. And coming out to the KP, I don't know if you know about this area, even the firemen won't drive down a driveway without being invited, because these people are very, some of them isolate for a reason, you know, it's just the community. So I came, and because I live where I do, I bought this from my brother's estate. So I had my foot in the door on the KP. And then as a home health nurse, I had met so many wonderful people and kept people in their homes. I'm a firm believer, your parent can fall in their house or they can fall in a nursing home, you know. Absolutely. Let them stay home, you know. There is ways for them to stay home.
Yes.
So that was a big, but what happened is arthritis set in, because when you're out in the field, you don't have Hoyer lifts, you don't have a certified nursing assistant to help you move somebody. It's all you. And my back just, the arthritis set in, you know, and set in until, you know, 2 back fusions, both hips replaced. But that's when it's like I started taking pictures of my garden. And then I have like 2,000 followers on there just taking pictures, because I couldn't do nothing. Here I have this nursing degree, can't do what I love doing. So then I did that, and then we were having Thanksgiving and my kids were there and we're all doing our quick wit and joking about each other. I said, you know what? You guys need to try comedy. And my son said, you do it first and I'll do it. And
wow.
I took a class and I just loved it. Absolutely loved it.
Now, has he decided to follow you?
He just took a class at Nate Jackson's Super Funny Comedy Club, which I highly recommend. And he did really well. but he's still kind of, it's getting over that vulnerable part, which all comedians have to do. You know, you just gotta lay it out there.
Yes.
Love what they see. You know, he writes a lot of material, and he helps him with the take here and there. He's got this wit that just thinks better than I do sometimes.
Wow, that's great to have a son like that around, especially if you're writing comedy and he's so good at it too. So so talk to me about some of the things you've accomplished in comedy in your own words. I know I read your intro, but what are some things you're really proud of that you've accomplished in the years you've been doing comedy?
Well, I've been very, very lucky in the fact that ageism is always a factor in comedy. But I have to say, the Seattle area, in the Tacoma area, even Olympia, they have embraced me. And at Nate's, I'm Miss Janice, and they're accepting me as a comedian. At first, they'd look at me like, what's that old lady doing in here? And now it's, oh, hi, Miss Janice, or when I'm going up on stage, you're all clapping. Don't do that. Then you get up there and you think, the expectation, But other areas, the bookings and stuff, it's kind of hard because they're looking for younger comedians, what looks pretty instead of what's funny sometimes.
Absolutely.
And you hear a lot of it. And you just sit there and smile, and it's like, it's what Sherry told me. Never tell a comedian they did a good job. Say nothing. But if they do a good job, then tell them they did a good job, because you're not helping them by pretending they were funny. I think that's good advice. Everybody should do that, I think.
Absolutely. I tell people good job because I feel like I just do it because everybody that gets up should be applauded that they got up. But I'll say great job, or you killed, or you rocked it, if they really did well.
Yeah, there's a way, especially if it's their first couple of times, you're not going to go, oh, okay, because it does. That's so scary, But I was lucky enough to have taken the class. We had a graduation night. And there were 300 people in the audience, all, ready for the comedy. So I did really well, which was, kind of,
That's fabulous. When you took your comedy class and graduated in front of 300 people, who was the teacher of that class?
Corey. Now I always say his Luke's, I can't even say Luke's name, but I call him Corey Michaelis because that's how the name looks spelled, but I guess it's Michelle or something. And Andrew Rivers. I don't know if you've heard of Andrew Rivers in the Pacific Northwest. He was one of my instructors. And when graduation, I did my, what was it, 5 minutes, I think they gave us. And he came, when I was going off stage, goes, I didn't know you told jokes like that.
Oh, I love your comedy. I think that's great that they've wrapped their arms around you. So what is it that I'm 71 years old. What do you want to accomplish before you get old and die?
Oh, I think writing a book, definitely, about this whole thing. I keep extensive notes about everything, even my writing, how I come up with things, or, it's just, I do think it's a God-given talent that you have to grow. There are those that just, very few, they can just go up on that stage and they're, funny to the point where they're consistently funny. Anybody can make an audience laugh by doing a goofy gesture or something like that, but to consistently get an audience to laugh at the same jokes, that is high priority. I want to get to the point where I'm featuring. Right now I'm 10 to 15 minutes. I refuse to go before I'm ready because I've seen too many comedians do that, and then They're not booked anymore. You have to have the substance, and being older with life experience gives me an edge, but you still need the experience. You still need those
Yes.
open mics. And these people that say, I don't go to open mics, well, you're a fool. Because you relate to everybody. You relate to those people, you know, otherwise you get yourself in this little glass bubble and you're not funny anymore. You know, you have to relate to who you're doing comedy for.
You have a lot of wisdom inside of you that you're spewing out right now. I mean, it's just so much wisdom. What is the one thing that you want? What is one thing one comedian you have to perform with, or one venue you want to perform at?
I would love, on my bucket list is opening for Ron White.
Oh, that would be a kick.
I absolutely love him. And I will watch him, and it's the way he'll move his lips right before he's going to say something. It cracks me up because you know it's coming, and the audience knows it's coming. And then, boom, he does it. Absolutely love his comedy.
Yeah, I do too. I'm mesmerized by it. He makes it look so simple.
Yeah, he does. He really does.
Yes.
So that would
So
be,
that would be awesome if you got to do that, from our mouths to God's ears.
there you go.
Yeah. So in terms of reaching around and helping younger comedians, I can see you really doing that. In what way do you reach out and help younger, and I don't mean age, I mean younger in experience?
An experience. It's now it's hard because I'm an hour from Tacoma, but I try to make their open mics. I try to make their first show like actual shows, the show support, and then just keep encouraging, you know. And I share where they're going to be too. I love doing that. I know a lot of they just want to share their own stuff. No, share the other comedians where they're going to be and what they're going to do. You know, I love watching them evolve. I've got to do that with a couple of like Shad Foster. First time I seen him up on stage, I felt so sorry for him. He was just brand new, and now he is so funny. And he's in Arizona, you know. So we'd see him once in a while. He comes back up, you know, where we are. But watching them grow is it's exhilarating for me.
It is. It is. It's like giving birth to children. Watching them grow, it's so gratifying, you know, when you encourage and you see the fruits of your labor. You encourage them, don't give up, keep trying, and then you see them start to really take off and become extra funny.
Yeah, because I think the one thing that makes you unfunny is jealousy. You know, you get those that are jealous and begrudge people when they're moving up. Why? Why? Because you're turning what you supposedly makes you happy into something that's not making you happy. You know, you gotta let that go. Gotta, because you know, what do I have? I'm 70 years old, maybe 10. Well, my grandmother and her sisters lived to be 99 to 101. I may have another 30 years. I don't know, maybe it's just when you might, who knows? But where will those people be then? You know, I mean, hopefully they visit me wherever I'm at, you know, when I can't go anymore.
Absolutely. You're a delight. You're an absolute encouragement and a delight and a bright spot in a dark world sometimes. I'm telling you, it's been dark out there lately. So what I'd like you to do now as we wrap up is, there's people there watching this show on the YouTube after the fact, and they're like, nice, tell me something to me. Say something directly to one person. If there's one person you'd like to reach out to that might be watching, what would you want to say to them above and beyond everything else you've said?
Well, I'd like to say to Lexi Green, I missed your show the other night and I feel horrible about it. But as most people know, my little sis was in the hospital. And I will be there for the next one. I absolutely 100% promise you. She's an up and coming. I Oh my gosh, she's so funny. So funny.
Oh
So,
my gosh.
I
Well,
wanted to do
Lexi will forgive you. How's your sister doing?
she bounced back and, went into it was influenza, which she and I have been arguing over the vaccination for years, and I won, but she learned a lesson, I think. But antibiotics, and she's doing quite well. But she has COPD from smoking,
Wow.
and I've been nagging at her for years, and you can't live somebody else's life. That's
No.
how she copes with stress. And I told her,
Absolutely.
at her age, if that makes her happy, leave her alone.
How about it? Well, where can people follow you on the social medias that are important to you?
Okay, well, a lot of it I do just Facebook, Janice L. Fox Facebook, and I guess I'm 0.3. That's the third one, I guess. And my email is just Janice L. Fox 66 because that was the year I started it. At Gmail, get a hold of me that way. I have to get into the Instagram and that, TikTok, and I'm doing reels now, which that's what I'm working on, doing those. But I actually want to get into doing sketches. And one I want to call it Ooh Bros Ooh, where it's my husband and I watching old monster movies, and we just make this funny banter, through the whole thing. I think that'd be funny.
Yes.
Something I'm working on.
That's awesome. I have all these interviews I've done, and I want to, in my spare time, I want to go on YouTube and play them and then make sarcastic comments about all the stupid mistakes I've made while I've interviewed people.
Oh, you did great. Fantastic. And Sherry, she said, oh, she's a fantastic interview.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Well, so we know where to follow you, and then upcoming shows that you have going on. If anybody is going to be in the Seattle, Tacoma area, do you have anything coming up that they can go watch you live?
Yeah, that will be at the Odd Otter in Tacoma, Washington on December 19th, and the show starts at 7. And it's a little brewery type setting. It's really cool place.
That's awesome. December 19th at the, what's the name of the venue?
Odd Otter.
Odd Otter, yeah. I wonder how it got that name.
I don't know.
Who knows? Well, you've been a delight. Thank you so much for your time coming on. I so appreciate your interview time, and I'll post it, and feel free to share it wherever you would like. And anytime you have another show coming up and you want me to help promote it or plug it, send me a flyer or tell me you want to come on and plug something, any fundraiser or causes you got going on, let me know. New talent that you want me to interview, let me know.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Janice L. Fox. Bye, everybody. Bye, Janice. Come back to Vegas.
Yeah, I'm going to.